Today is a good day in random in psychology. You know why? One of my favorite topics got picked by the random number generator this morning. The number was low, and I was like, that's either research methods or the brain, because those are at the front of the book. And lo and behold, we have a brain topic. Oh, the brain is so cool. Your brain is so cool. So our topic for today is actually the cerebral cortex, which is basically the 2 to 4 millimeters of gray matter made up of neurons on the outside of your brain. So think of like, I wouldn't say the skin of your brain because that would make us think differently about it, but kind of. So the outside portion of your brain that we generally think of as like the gray matter, that's going to be your cerebral cortex. It's kind of the outer layer, right? It's broken up into 4 lobes. If you've learned brain before, this should be a review. If it's not, cool. So your frontal lobe is here. Frontal lobe does things like making good decisions, planning ahead, telling you, hey, that's not a good idea, or hey, that's a great idea. So again, making good decisions, right? We move back to the parietal lobe, which does our sensation and perception. So sensing information about pain. And then we move all the way back into the occipital lobe, which is where your vision is processed. And then we talk about our temporal lobe, which is here by the ears. Makes it easy to remember that the temporal lobe does hearing and speaking related tasks. So couple of interesting things. I will tell you that whenever I talk about the brain, my high school students that I tutor for the AP psychology exam always make fun of me because they're like, you'll say, and what's really cool is, but you say that all the time. So what is really cool? I'm like, all of it's really cool. Like, duh. So your cortex is actually kind of bumpy. If you've seen pictures of a brain, you know what I mean. It looks bumpy on the outside. So the rises are what we call gyri, and the lower parts are what we call sulci. And it's not like I think that someone intentionally designed it this way, but because of the fact that it's basically kind of crushed up on itself, it actually has a lot more surface area and can fit inside of your skull. So if it was just flat, it would have much less surface area, much fewer abilities, I should say. But because of the fact that it is squished up, so it has these rises and falls, that gives it more surface area, which means more neurons, which means more cool stuff for you to learn and remember, more sensory information, all that sort of stuff. So what else do we want to talk about in terms of it? I mean, there's so many cool things that I could talk about. Like we could talk about the motor cortex, which is in the frontal lobe, right before the central sulci that breaks up the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. And it has spots on it for movement for all of the different parts of your body. And then we move past that central sulcus into the somatosensory cortex. And that is actually going to have sensory spots for every single part of your body that can sense cool things. We can also talk about parts of the cortex that maybe you haven't learned about. So for example, the insular cortex, which does the processing and integration of taste, and then also pain sensation, vestibular functions, and then there's also the limbic lobe, which does modulating of emotions. So think about your limbic system, modulating of autonomic functions, learning, memory. So your cerebral cortex is pretty dang cool. And so we want to protect it. How do we protect it, you would say? Well, we make sure that we are doing healthy things. So we're getting enough sleep. We're getting enough healthy food. We're drinking enough water. And we are protecting it while we are doing activities. So, for example, wearing a helmet if we're doing an activity that might cause us to hit our head or have a concussion, things like that. If you do experience a concussion, it is important for us to rest so that the brain can work to heal itself rather than pushing yourself to continue, your typical behaviors, which may not allow for your brain to actually heal itself. Talk to you tomorrow.